to keep my bead of my Sig Sauer on him, and I couldn't because I was running so fast and breathing so hard and my adrenaline was pumping. And as I was running towards him, he was just looking like this at me, and he had his hands down here. And at that time, I ran right up to him, and I put my pistol about 2 inches from his the temple ear area, his left side. And I was just saying, "Show me your hands, show me your hands."
Because he still had his hands in his pocket.
He had his hands in his jacket. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, that's when the car that I hadn't even seen where it was, the car pulls up behind Molly's Tahoe and blocks her in. And that's when the person gets out of the car, runs to the front. And that's when I was about maybe 60 yards away. And that's when I went, "Oh my God, it's Cheryl, my ex-wife."
Yeah.
And that's when I like lost it. I was like, "Oh my God, this is not good." And she was a professional stunt woman. And so she was an expert with a gun. She could break a gun down like 20 times faster than me because she had been in stunts where she had done these, a lot of weapons. She'd used a lot of weapons, and she was a very, very good shot. And I was like, "Oh my God." And she said, and I had my pistol to the man's head, and I was trying to get him to show me his hands. And from, I guess, where she was, it looked like I was, going to execute this guy. And I was trying to get him to show me his hands. And she goes, "Lindsey, no, I'm going to kill Molly." And she runs as fast as she can over to the door that I had left open, the passenger door that I had left open. And I was just like, I didn't even blink. I ran, and I knew I was going to get shot in the back by the man with the mask on. And I was waiting to get shot in the back, and I was running as fast as I could to Molly. And I was waiting to hear the guns go off for Cheryl to shoot her. And as soon as I got there, thank God Molly had ducked down, because Cheryl went to the front of the car and put the gun in on Molly's head. Molly dropped down. I could hear her screaming like a child. And then Cheryl had moved around as fast as she could. And as soon as I got there, she was walking up to Molly, to the window, the driver's side window, getting ready to shoot Molly, somewhere in the head or the back. And I came running up as fast as I could, knowing that she was going to shoot me. She swings her gun towards me, and I dropped down, and I started firing my pistol. And that's when I knew I was hitting her. And that's when I didn't realize I hit her 5 times, and she went back and she hit the ground. And that's when I walked over to Molly. Molly was full panic attack. I mean, she couldn't breathe. She was screaming. She was crying. She was beside herself. And she was in literally a panic. And I had to grab her head and say, "Stop. You've got to stop." And 911's on the call saying, "What happened? What happened?" Trying to get information. And I'm saying, "Stop. It's over. They're both dead." And 911's like, "Who's dead? Who's dead?"
Yeah. Well, because just to so my vantage point, when he, because I'm in the car the whole time, never even got out.
In between 2 shootouts, not sideways of shootouts, not a foot away. She is in the line of fire of 2 separate shootouts.
But I lost sight of him when he ran after the guy. And we didn't know who the guy, obviously we know who it is now, but at the time we had no clue that the man with the mask was Cheryl's current husband. Reed. And so when he chased after Reed across the street, I had no idea where he was. And all I could hear was yelling and gunshots, going on. And so and it's really interesting because when this kind of thing happens, you're supposed to call 911, you're supposed to do something, but it takes your brain a minute to register, okay, this is an emergency. Cause I did at first, I literally just was screaming at the top of my lungs. That's all I knew to do. And then you kind of do something. call 911. He had dropped his phone down on the passenger side seat. I don't even know where my phone was. And I just, ducked down. I grabbed his phone and I called 911 and was, screaming at them. And it only took them I think 4 minutes to get there, but it literally seemed like an hour. Hours. Yeah. And I remember even I'm not proud of this, but I was cussing. I was where, bleep, 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 where are you guys at? When are you going to get here? Because it seems so long. But I remember having this thought, because I didn't know where he's at.
And all the gunfire going, yeah. She knew I was dead.
I was you've got to go see where he's at. I mean, I still, if I can't let my mind think about it, but I just had this image of him being shot in the middle of the road, bleeding to death, and it's so you got to go help your husband. And right as I put my hand on the door handle to get out, that's when Cheryl came around. And I remember just that instant, because I didn't know who the guy was, but when she came around, it was oh my God, that is clear.
You knew.
She had sunglasses, a beanie, her hair looked different, but I could still tell it was her. And I just instantly, and it's all on the 911 recording. That was the interesting part. Everything from start to finish basically was recorded from his phone, then to the 911 call. And so the police were able to trace everything that we said. And they were you're literally spot on. We're missing 10 seconds and that's it. But you can hear on the 911 call me saying her name and pleading with her. And I just thought there's no way, I assumed in that moment when I saw her, he's dead or bleeding to death. There's no way she's not going to go through with this. And so you kind of just try and mentally prepare. And then out of nowhere, I heard shots again and I see her fall. And that's when I saw him sprinting
right towards
up the side of my car. And I'm it was insane. And so then, I was full panic, pandemonium. I mean, I don't even know how to describe that feeling. But I was petrified. I remember saying, because she fell right next to my car. I mean, that's where she died, literally right there.
2 feet from her door.
And I remember saying, I want to get away because I just felt it's like a bad movie. She's going to get up and start shooting again, What
happened was she was making noises because her lungs were filling up with blood, and she was making those noises at the end of life that the body can make. And the noises were horrible, and that's when I said, I can't get out of my mind.
Yeah.
And Molly heard that, and it said to Molly, she's still alive.
Right.
And so Molly just kept screaming, she's going to kill me, she's going to kill us, she's going to kill me, she's going to kill. And that's when I took her hand and I said, no. I said, stop. I said, it's over. I said, they're both gone. They're dead. And that's when 911 call said, Mr. Duncan, who's dead? What happened?
Yeah.
And I said, the people that tried to kill us, they're both dead.
Yeah.
And she goes, that's when she said to me, can you put your gun down? She goes, do you have
when the police get here, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
You don't want to know what I said.
Yeah.
Because I won't say it on your body. I said, I will not. I said, I will put my gun down when I see a uniformed police officer. Yeah. A uniformed police officer.
Yeah.
And then, and this is how fast PTSD sets in. I calmed Molly down. The noises were still going on with Cheryl laying there, and the car was running that had blocked Molly her car. And I knew without a shadow of a doubt, there was going to be another person get out of the car with a gun, and then another person, and then another person, and then another. This is what my mind said. And Molly, I said, I'm going to be right back. And I walked around and I took the other clip and I emptied my clip. And this is what wasn't shared on any of the TikTok or any of the other social media. And I dropped that clip that I had just shot 10 times. And I put a fresh clip in and I chambered around, which I needed to do. I walked over to the car and I opened the back door. It had black tinted windows. You couldn't see anything. And then I put my gun into the car, waiting for more shots to come out, more people or shots to come out of the car.
Yeah. And obviously there wasn't anybody else,
No.
but that's just what you just feel like.
You feel like it's not going to stop.
Yeah.
You literally
Yeah.
feel they're just going to keep on coming.
Right.
And all you can do is fight or flight. You can just defend yourself and defend your wife and defend your family.
Yeah.
And that's I was going to do it until I took my shot.
And that within just like probably a matter of seconds at that point, it literally was like every police car in all the surrounding
helicopters.
counties. I've never seen so many police cars in my life, but they shut the road off both ways. And, he goes out in the middle of the road, puts down his weapon, and then this was the really interesting part too, that we haven't talked about, is like, they immediately separate the two of us.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we need a story from each of you. I was put in one car, he was put in another. They're like, we need your phones, we need this, we need that. I was put in the back of a police car and they shut the door, and I'm sitting there, and you're just, again, your brain is just trying to like I literally was just coming home from the grocery store, and now I'm sitting in the back of this police car with, the road barricaded, and
two bodies on the ground, and one already has a sheet over it.
And I'm sitting in the back of the car, and I started to have a panic attack, and I couldn't breathe. And so I go to open the car. Well, you can't get out of the back of a police car. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess you're not supposed to be able to get out. So I am like banging on the window, and this cop that I think had literally started the week before he was at the road. I felt bad. He was just
and he had never seen anything like this.
Shell shocked.
Yeah, he was shocked.
And I said, you've got to, I'm going to pass out. I said, I'm not going anywhere, but you have to open this door. Like, I'm literally going to have a heart attack in here. And they were, I will say, the police officers of Greene County, and everybody they were so amazing, so kind. I mean, they had a job to do. They had to get the story, but they were so gracious to us, but he opened the door, and I was like, okay, I can breathe a little bit. But then, we're both taken to the police station. We're detained separately for 8 hours. Then you got to meet with an attorney, and it's just this whole, crazy gamut of emotions and things taking place. It was just insane, So
I think when something like this happens and it's so traumatic, when I know people are listening, and I'm sure when people watch on TikTok, and I've been in the lives and I've watched the comments, people always think that when this happens, you've seen it in the movies, you know exactly what you're going to do. It is so opposite, because your adrenaline is going, but everything is almost slowed down in slow motion. And what seems like 4 minutes is 4 hours. So if you're listening right now and you're like, I would have done this different. Absolutely not.
Yeah, no,
it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
And that definitely was not the movies.
Yeah. It's crazy how reality, just like you said, just completely slows down. And I don't know, the things that go through your mind, I was for sure, like I said, I was convinced he was dead. And then when I saw her, I just was like, you do start thinking okay, I'm never going to see my children again. I'm never going to see my parent, all of those things, flash through your mind. In that moment, it's terrifying. So yeah, that in a nutshell is what happened to us. And then we had to go through the whole process of, I guess it's protocol for this kind of thing to go before a grand jury.
Yeah.
And so he was 100% fully exonerated. It was ruled complete self-defense. In fact, we both had to get up on the stand and tell our version of what happened. And there were actual the jurors. Some of them were actually crying, listening to her story. Yeah. It was just very clear, what had happened. And so, yeah, that's it.
The big question that raised in my mind is why? Why was this done to you? What was supposed to be the plan? Why was this done and carried out?
So about 5 years prior, she had hired a hitman who was actually
Former military.
former military, and he was a teacher for the snipers in Texas. And this was somebody who had taught sniper class for like something like 25, 30 years. And so he came to me one day and he said, I have to tell you, he goes, I want to meet you somewhere. And so we met at my ranch in Bastrop, just outside of Bastrop, Texas. And over about a 3.5 hour period, he told me that Cheryl had contacted him and had offered him a large, very large sum of money from a very large insurance policy that she had out on my life. And she had offered to give him so much money each year for 10 years and forgive as a loan and then forgive it each year. And I said, why are you coming to me and telling me this? And I'll never forget the look in his eyes when he told me this. He said, she is going to kill you. And I'm not going to get blamed for it. He said, something is not right. And he said, she will kill you or she will attempt to. And I'm not getting blamed. And I said, you understand that when you leave my property, I'm calling the police. And he goes, yes, I understand that. And I said, you understand that I'm going to tell them everything that you've said to me. And he goes, yes, I understand that. And I said, and you understand that they're going to ask you, they're going to call you in and they're going to ask you. And he goes, yes, I understand it. He goes, that's why I've done this.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. And then the Austin Police Department called Cheryl and Reed in, and they go put them through an interrogation. And there was probably 5 or 6 different detectives on this. And then the lead detective calls me and says, Mr. Duncan, we're not going to press charges. And I said, why? And he goes, we've got bigger things that we have to deal with. There's more serious issues. And she's remarried, and it was.
We think she's moved on.
We think she's moved on, and it was almost a year ago. And I said, did you talk to Billy? Did you talk to the hitman? And they go, yes, we did. We talked to him for quite some time. And I said, is that not enough evidence? And they go, it's enough evidence, but we think that she's moved on, and we're just not going to pursue it. Yeah. The DA is not going to pursue it. And I said to them, I hope you're recording this call. I said, somebody will end up dead. I go, it'll probably be me or my wife. I go, but somebody will end up dead. I go, you all are making a big mistake here. And I go, you'll see. Yeah. And that 4.5, 5 years prior to the event at our driveway with ski masks, camo, cameras set up across the street, fake driver's license, fake license plates, fake passports, 300 rounds of ammunition, zip ties, everything. And they're called.
When you go through a traumatic experience, PTSD is something that it doesn't just go away or disappear after the event has happened. How has that affected not only each of you, but also your marriage? Because you went through this traumatic experience together, but each of your narratives, like obviously, Molly, you were in the car. So your experience, you were at the same event, but it's different. And Lindsey, your experience was different. So how has that worked within PTSD and your marriage and healing together, but almost in a different way on your own?
Mm-hmm.
We almost divorced. That's how it worked.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
We
putting it blunt, like just cut to the chase. Yeah, we almost divorced.
We started self-medicating. We started suppressing it, and you can't suppress it. It's not suppressible.
Yeah.
It's not suppressible.
Yeah.
It just isn't.
This happened literally probably 45 days before COVID really hit and before everything got shut down. And we did a little bit of therapy and then really didn't find the right therapist and kind of got frustrated with that process. And then we moved because I couldn't be at that home anymore. I had a really difficult time leaving and coming back home, obviously. And my kids had problems, and it was just like we needed a new space. Luckily, we had already kind of been looking for a different house, and I think God was kind of already putting those pieces into play. And so we moved, and we distracted ourselves with like, oh, let's do renovations now, and let's do this, and let's do that. And then, COVID, you're not working, you're not going out anywhere. And we started self-medicating with a lot of frequent alcohol, and just numbing ourselves out, obviously, because it always took the edge off. And, you can only do that for so long. It was a total Band-Aid. And then almost a year to the date, about 25 days short of the 1-year anniversary of the shooting, everything just kind of imploded, like in our personal life. And we kind of got to this point where we looked at each other and said, we love each other, but this is a lot. And like, it might be just easier to go our separate ways. And, like people have their tipping point. And so we kind of honestly, for about 4 or 5 days, had decided like, we're going to end the marriage. And like, he left, we were talking about how we were talking about who's getting the dogs, which I was getting the dogs. By the way, but yeah, like that's how far we were definitely like, this is the direction we were going. And then, one night I've always been prone to panic attacks. Like those started in my early 20s. But obviously when you go through a trauma, it makes it even more significant. And so one night, it was probably like 3 nights after he had left, I just woke up like out of a sound sleep, and literally I was like, I'm dying. Like I cannot. And if you've never had a panic, like people that say panic attacks are not that big of a deal. Like, I don't know if you've had one or not. Talk about depression and anxiety. Okay. So you can probably relate, like you literally can feel like you are dying. And it just kept getting more and more and more intense. And we were not even really speaking at this point, but for whatever reason, I picked up the phone and I called him, and I don't even think I could really speak when he answered the phone. And I was like, I need you to come home. Like, I need you. And he was actually staying at the home where the shooting had happened, because we hadn't sold it yet. It took us like 2.5, 3 years to sell that house. So he had gone back there just to like, we were, trying to figure things out and go our separate ways. So he was like 15 minutes away. He drove home, stayed on the phone with me the whole time. And then for whatever reason that night, I think we talked until like 3 a.m. in the morning. It was like, and I honestly, this is the weird part about it. I remember everything when it comes to conversations, and I can't even remember like what was said that night to each other. But I know like we said things to each other in a way that we had not before. And it was almost like I understood him and he understood me. And at that point, it was like, okay, I don't know if this can work. And he didn't either, but we're at least going to fight for it. And we're at least going to try. And so we decided that we had to do the work to heal. Like, we can't keep suppressing this. And it did look different for both of us. Like you said, like we went through the same situation, but it affected us differently. And so, because of his background, so heavily rooted in nutrition, and he's been fasting since he was 20 years old, I think there was something that told you he needed to go back to that. Yep. So he left and went a series of different places, and I'll let you fill him on that.
40 days.
Yeah. He was gone for I think it was even a little bit longer than that. Doing the work that he needed to do, and fasting, and just, soul searching, all those things that you have to do. And then I did the same thing, but I stayed at home, and that's when I really just I had been fighting like what we had been through so much. Like, I didn't want to accept it. It really honestly made me so angry. It made me feel embarrassed, which a lot of people are like, well, why were you embarrassed? Like, you were, the victim. And I'm like, no, I felt embarrassed because I thought a lot of people looked at us and just was like, their life is a complete mess. Like, who would want their life?
And we live in a small community too.
Yeah. And there was a lot of
everything.
Yeah. And I did not want to even like look at it. I didn't want to, if somebody would bring it up to me, I would change the subject really, really fast. Like, if somebody would have told me I'd be doing this, I would have been like, no way. I will never, talk about it. Like, I just wanted to pretend like it had never happened.
And 2 nights after we get home, back to the house, or maybe it was 2 nights, I don't know. We turn on the TV, and there we are on Inside Edition.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we did see.
Mm-mm.
We're watching Deborah Norville,
Yeah.
At the beginning as the teaser.
Yeah.
Say there's, wait till you see this couple.
This couple,
two people gunned down in their driveway. And wait till you see who's there waiting and hiding, waiting.
Yeah.
It's just drama. They just wanted to dramatize it. And E! Entertainment had called us, and our attorneys said no. Inside Edition had called us at least a dozen times, and our attorneys just said the Duncans we don't want to talk.
Yeah.
We were offered ridiculous amounts of money from these studios in Europe for the rights to the movie, and we're sitting here going, this is embarrassing. This is our life. This is not what is it? Inside Edition. This is
Dateline.
This is our life.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know. It's kind of like at that point, I think you can only, and this is what I would say to people who are listening, because, like, our situation is very unique, and chances are there's not a lot of people that are going to have gone through something exactly like we've gone through. But here is the thing that I'll say, like, no matter what you've gone through, pain is pain. And like, when you go through a significant trauma or a loss or an illness or whatever it is that like disrupts your life in a huge way, the pain and the emotion a lot of the times is very similar, like across the board. And I think you can only suppress it and ignore it and distract yourself for a certain amount of time. And eventually, sometimes it'll be 6 months, sometimes it'll be 6 years, but eventually it will capitulate to where you have a choice. I either have to like face this and do the work to heal, or it's literally going to ruin my life. And that's kind of where we came to. It's like, look, they're gone, but ultimately they're going to win because we're going to divorce. We're never going to see each other again. Our lives are completely going to fall apart as we know it. And so the time that I was working on myself, that's when I really started writing and trying to just get some of this out. Writing's always been very therapeutic to me. And that's really how my company, Tattoos of My Soul, was, even came to be. I was running on the treadmill one day when Tattoos of My Soul just came to me. I was like, that's a good name for like a blog. Because that's all Tattoos was just going to be a blog. That's all I was planning to do. And then, my faith is a huge part of my life. And there was something that told me when I was like at my lowest point, hey, if you started like maybe praying for others, it would actually help you. Like, something just told me that. So one day I was on Facebook and I just like posted, hey, does anybody have any interest in a prayer group? And I got this huge response. Yeah. And so I created this private group, and, it's got about 1,000 people in it now, and it's about 2 years old. And it's just all about prayer, and it's all about, I post, scripture in there, and it's just very encouraging. But then things just kept like morphing from that. And it's like, well, hey, now I think I'd like to maybe help other people who are struggling. So then when we finally met up after being apart, we came together in Florida. Yeah. And we started talking about kind of our individual journeys and like what we had, because we didn't really talk that much while we were apart. We just kind of, gave each other space. And it was very interesting because we both had come to the same realization that we needed to use this extremely painful circumstance to help other people and to do something good with it. And that's when I said, I think I saw this thing online. It's called life coaching, and I've kind of been looking at it, and I think I might be good at it. I think I want to try it. And it takes, I have to get a little certification, but it's not that big of a deal. And he was like, yeah, do it. Like, go for it. And so I found this awesome life coach school, Life Purpose Institute. And I was like, that's it. That's perfect, And so then I got my coaching certification. And then we started talking about like what his was going to look like, and I'll let you explain that, obviously.
Yeah, mine's just as simple. It's what I've always done.
It's not actually simple, but it's
what I've
it's
amazing. I built 3 large nutritional supplement companies previously, and I had finished. I was done with business. I couldn't stand corporate America. I couldn't stand the lies and the manipulation and just the cheating and just the dark aspect of the corporate world. I just think it's a poisonous, toxic cesspool, and I just wanted nothing to do with it. And so I was done. And after that day of, being spared, I just decided, I'm going to help people.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
think your story is amazing, and I think your story amazes so many people because of what happened. But it's not just about the craziness of how it happened and what happened. But I think what's really incredible about you as a couple is you're not allowing the trauma to define either one of you in where you were in that moment of your life versus where you're choosing to go next. When you're a victim of anything in response to trauma, PTSD, it can define you and, like you said, ruin the rest of your life, or you can use that as a tool to bring out your creativity, to bring out what you have and have available to other people. And I think that's what draws so many people to your story is not, hey, this happened, and people look at it as entertainment, but it's the most traumatic thing can happen to you, but it's what you're doing next with it. And I think both of you are unbelievably strong and incredible for not only what you've been through, but turning that more into a positive direction to change your lives and helping other people.
Yeah, thank you.
We appreciate that.
And I think too, you asked about the individual PTSD. Like I will say, like it's only been 3 years. So there's still things that I notice within myself. Like when it first happened, it was very significant and almost kind of crippling in a way. I've moved past a lot of that. But like for me, like because both the shooting and then when him and I almost, parted ways, it came very abruptly. So I have like this thing within me where it's like any sign of anything bad, I kind of go into
worst case scenario.
Yeah, worst case. I kind of freak out a little bit, and I can go to just complete panic, and I really have to continue. And I think I'll probably have to do this for the rest of my life. Continue to just say, the past doesn't equal the future. Like you don't need to freak out. You can manage this. And we did finally go to therapy and my therapist said something really good to me. And I've actually passed this along to a lot of my coaching clients. And he said to me one day when I was in there kind of in freak out mode, and he was like, Molly, he was like, you've survived like a shooting, you and Lindsey, you and Lindsey are still together. He's like, look at everything you've been through. You're still standing. He said, I'm pretty sure you're going to make it through whatever comes around the pike. And he said, but the thing you need to remember when you have that panic feeling is he said, you need to take a couple of deep breaths and then say to yourself, I have the tools to manage whatever comes my way. And that one statement, I don't know, like it just resonated with me. And I literally use it on sometimes a weekly basis. Like, okay, I can manage this, And I think it's just a learning process. It never goes away completely. It is tattooed on my soul. Like, that hence the name, like it's not going to go away, but it doesn't have to rule our life. We don't have to become addicted and numb ourselves out. We can choose a different route and we can help other people because of this trauma. And I think that that's what we're doing, and that's really why we're okay with talking about it. Cause there was some nasty comments like, oh, you're just trying to get famous or you're trying to make money off this awful thing. And it's like, no, but we're doing something good, but you have to understand where we've been in order to understand what we're doing now. So that's why we talk about it.
And my PTSD is completely different, It's just like, I know it's not going to go away. And I just try to be a witness and see it, and I keep one.
Yeah.
I think too, from what I've heard through speaking with you is you did not turn away from either of your feelings with each other and with yourselves. I think that's very important going through a traumatic experience It's okay to not have a timeline. It's okay to take it moment by moment, day by day, hour by hour. Do not be so hard on yourself that you feel that you have to get over something just because, society tells you. It can take years. It can take an entire lifetime, but I'm impressed at how you both have not only taken the time for yourselves individually, because that's important, but then you're also working as a unit and as a team together based on sharing that experience, but also respecting the other partner of, you had your experience, I had my experience. We're going to work separately, but also find that place to come together. I think that's very, very important for the healing process.
Yeah, no, it is for sure.
And I don't know if you ever get over it. People like to say that. They'll use that phrase. And how do you ever get over something that you saw and something that you heard and something that you did with your own hand? You never get over it. You just have to process it the best way that you can.
Yeah.
And you just have to find the lessons and find the growth and find the why, the reason. Why did that happen? What's my lesson? What do I need to learn from that? I don't know. I'll never get over it, ever. But I'll continue to process it until I take my last breath.
Yep.
That's the key. You process and then you accept what you can in the moment of acceptance. I think that's extremely important. And your moment of acceptance, it may alternate. One day you may accept it. And like Molly said, I was so angry. I felt embarrassed. And you're going to feel all those feelings in trauma because like that, you live in a small town. Everybody knows your business. I was born and raised in a small town in Ohio. We had the same mailman. We waved at our neighbors. If somebody got a new car, they knew before you even made it to your driveway. So you have this sense of accomplishment of who you are and success in your life. And when something happens like this, you go from a small community to the entire world using your life as an entertainment story, which is, I can't even begin to imagine adding that into processing and healing. And I appreciate you guys coming on today and talking about it because every time you talk about it, it's putting you right back in that moment, which is also a part of the healing process. And it makes it really difficult.
Yeah. I think we've come a long way though. I know I can because like I got through all of this. I only got choked up one time. So that's progress, right? Like, you have to take note of those little wins. Like I used to not even be able to talk about this at all. Like, so, you get, and I have, like I said at the beginning, I've come to this place where I will never pick what happened to us. I would never say like, oh yeah, that sounds great, obviously. But I will tell you, I'm a better human being on the other side of this. Like the empathy that I have for people now, like, not that I was this uncaring person, but when you go through something like this and then you see other people that are hurting. And our world is full of hurting people. You like recognize it on a completely different level, and then also too, I think like the self-confidence I have, like I know that I have strength within me. Like, it's been tested in a very large way. And so there's a lot of different things that you can gain by going through, difficult things. And so that's kind of what I would say to people, like, you're never going to pick it, but trust the process and trust what you can gain and what you can learn from it.
Well, again, thank you guys so much for coming on, sharing your story, but also showing people that you don't have to stay stuck in the traumatic experience. It's okay to process it. You can dip back into that chapter here and there, but you need to move on with your life and understand that only the strong ones are put into these circumstances because you are strong enough to survive it and you're strong enough to come out on the other side. So thank you guys for coming on, sharing your story, being vulnerable. I will put all your information in the bio as well. Make sure you follow their story. And if you're listening right now and you're in that dark space that you don't think you can come out of it and you're going through a traumatic experience, PTSD, anxiety, panic attacks, and everything in between, follow them on TikTok, go on their live because you're not the only person that's going through a hard time. You will get through it because you are strong enough to make sure that you can get on the other side.
Thank you, Tabitha. It was really nice to meet you and talk with you.